Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SHAcast, Brews, Bites, and Boston Life, and fourth episode. I can say the most awaited episode. Why? Because today, the guest we are having in our episode is very special to everyone who's watching from our school. He's one of the most famous people in our school, famous professor, I can say. He's everywhere. Wherever you go, any event from BU or from our school SHA, he's everywhere. And I guess most of the people know who is it. So without any more introduction, I'm just gonna welcome him here and let you know who is it. So hi, Professor Katz.
Hello, Diva.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
This is the first time you took my name correctly, I guess.
I know it kills me to do it, but yes.
No, but I like the way you call me DV, so that's totally fine.
All right.
But I'm telling you, you are the legendary professor of our school. Why? You're everywhere. People love you. People love to talk to you. You talk to everyone. And people were waiting that when is the ultimate professor of SHA is coming down in your podcast, and he's going to talk about SHA. He's going to talk about hospitality, because we all know that we don't need to guide you while talking. You can talk from your heart anytime, anywhere you want. So, Professor Katz, welcome once again. And thank you so much for coming to this episode. And I hope you're going to like it. But before we start the podcast and get into the questions, I would really love if you can, for our viewers and listeners, if you can introduce yourself, that what do you do, where are you from, and how has it been in hospitality?
Sure. So I am Jonathan Katz, and I've been with SHA for 5 years now. I teach both in the graduate and undergraduate programs. I teach communication courses. I teach branding and marketing, and I am very, very, very lucky to teach with an amazing team of colleagues here. And each one is extremely talented in their own right. And I come from the industry side of life, not academia. So this is a new part of my chapter. And for about 40 years, I actually was in the healthcare industry and owned and operated a successful marketing firm in healthcare.
Well, you mentioned about your experience for 40 years in healthcare industry, and now you also mentioned that a new journey in hospitality since last 5 years. You're here teaching as a professor, and specifically branding and marketing. I have been your student since last 28 weeks. We concluded our class last night. I'm kind of sad, and I was, when you were giving that last speech, when we all were sitting together in a circle, I don't know whether I should say this or not, but I was getting pretty emotional at that point of time, which maybe I shouldn't have been like that, but I was getting emotional.
What made you feel that way?
That we are not going to have any more classes. I really don't want to leave school for now. Yeah. I want to stay here more. But
it goes by very quickly. It really does. When I got my master's, from BU in the School of Communications, and it was a 2-year program. And actually, Professor Lanz and I were in the same class.
So you were classmates as well?
We were classmates, and we met the first day of graduate school. And actually, it's because of Professor Lanz that I'm here.
That's why you bond over really well. Like, if I'm talking to Professor Lanz, she always mentions you. If I'm talking to you, you always mention her. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? How well do they know each other? So you go back long back.
We go back a long time. Our families are very close. She's a dear friend as well as a colleague. And she was teaching HF 460, which is our experiential marketing class. And I would come in and guest speak on branding. And I loved it. It was so much fun. And then there was an opportunity to actually teach an extra section of that. And she said, "How about it? Do you want to teach it?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, work in healthcare. I am gainfully employed. How do I do this? And do I want to do it? And I'm so glad she convinced me to do it because it was so much fun. And I just got a little taste of it, and I loved it. And the hospitality industry and the healthcare industry have so much in common in many ways. And hospitality can learn a lot from healthcare, and healthcare can learn a lot from hospitality. So I taught the class, and what I would do is I would sit in Professor Lanz's class in the morning, and then I would teach the same exact class in the afternoon, and did that for a semester, and never looked back. And
So
it's
learn
been great
from the
fun.
best and
Learn
became
from
the
the
best.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if I became the best. I learned from the best.
By this time, you should know that you are one of the best professors. I'm not saying that everyone is best, but you're the most favorite professor for every student, which most of the students to whom I've talked, like even
Well,
in our previous episodes, Noah was there. Noah's like, Professor Katz.
Clearly, you have to talk to more students now.
Do you really think I don't talk to everyone?
That's true. You do
I
talk
have
with
been
everyone.
termed as class clown by a lot of people because I talk to everyone, I'm everywhere. So I get it. After you, I guess I'm the most talkative person at SHA,
Oh, that's so
talking to
funny.
everyone. I'm not flexing on that, but I get that a lot. That he talks.
Well, the
a lot.
irony is, I'm actually quite an introvert, so it's kind of humorous that people see me as talkative and gregarious because I really do process things internally. I need my downtime. I am most definitely introverted, which usually surprises people.
I didn't know that. This is the first time, and after 28 weeks of being with you, I got to know that you're an introvert. You don't look like an introvert.
Oh, I'm a strong introvert.
Can we say that you're an ambivert?
No, I don't even think so. I don't even think I can give myself that grace. But when you were talking also about last night's class and sort of the wrap up, if you will, it's emotional for me too. It's really bittersweet. Like I said, we get to know each other, and then you guys all go on your way, and we're excited to see that. I mean,
Yeah.
people do exciting things after leaving here. But we miss you, and we you get to know each other as people, and everyone has a really interesting story, and it takes a little bit of time to get that story. And when you do get it and you value it and you start building a relationship around it, then graduation sneaks around the corner, and it's like, I wish we had more time as well. But it really, I know it sounds corny, but I really do view it as a privilege, and I love the reason why I like hanging out in the grad lounge and the undergraduate lounge is that it's great to be able to spend a little bit of time with everybody, not in a classroom environment, and not being the one who is responsible for leading a conversation, but instead being able to join it.
I was going to mention this thing that your sudden visits to Grad Lounge, and sometimes we think, okay, Professor Katz spend more time in Grad Lounge, more than us actually. Like every time we come to Grad Lounge, Professor Katz is there, and we are like, okay, what's happening? What's new? What's coming? And I also remember last Friday after my previous recording of my previous episode, me and Sean were sitting in the Grad Lounge. You came up and we sat there, like three of us, for 2 hours, talking about our own cultures, how we have been raised with our families, and how things are back in India, or for Sean back in Taiwan, or for you here in the US culture. And you were telling us that how things are different. But when it comes to hospitality, we all align together, and specifically at SHA. So I want to ask you this question. What do you think, what is special about this school, about SHA, School of Hospitality Administration? We encourage hospitality so much. But what do you think, what is that one thing which makes it more beautiful, and which, makes it evident that, yes, we are the one-stop station for hospitality?
Sure. I think this school, I think SHA has a real soul. And not every school or program does. And I think it comes from the way the dean, has set the tone for the school. He very much cares that people are not only learning and productive, but also that they're happy while doing so. And that enables us as instructors to have that focus as well. I think that when I hear people talk about different schools and different programs, I know that a lot of times that people are competing with each other as students. Here, I think people compete with themselves. It's really important to do well because you want to do well. And we do so many, I don't have to say it this time of year, but we do so many presentations as teams, right? Oh my goodness. And you have to collaborate and you have to learn how to collaborate. And I think it's a real world learning because, when you get out there, you're going to be on teams and you're going to have to figure out, how do I contribute? And if this person isn't contributing, how do I compensate? Or how can I motivate that person to contribute in a meaningful way? I also think that I'm really excited and wish you were going to be here next year because in the fall we are introducing a communication platform that we're calling Experience Innovation. And this grew out of the conversations that people have misconceptions about what hospitality is. And a lot of them will think of hotels and restaurants and travel and tourism, right?
Yes.
But they'll also say housekeeping and making a souffle and all these wonderful things. But the reality is, I think what sets SHA apart is that our focus really is on the human interaction and experiences that people have together. And that's not frivolous, and it's very meaningful. And I think that companies and brands that figure that out and understand the value of making experiences meaningful to people are those same companies that do well in profit and in retention and attraction of customers. And so we want people to experience innovation in the way we define hospitality. We want people to experience innovation in the way we teach hospitality. And we want all of you guys, no matter whether it's from the lens of revenue management, marketing, you name it. We want you to leave SHA as experience innovators. We want you to be able to have that perspective because the reality is it's a several billion-dollar industry, and that demands leadership, and it demands vision, and that's where you guys come in. You are the next generation of that.
I like the term you used, experience innovator, and I remember when we were shooting this rebranding video. It's a small sneak peek which I'm giving on the podcast, which is going to come out soon. All of us said this line, and trust me, that interview was amazing. The whole process of rebranding video, of the shoot of that video was amazing. And I've been getting updates on that okay, it's going to come out soon, very soon. So I'm pretty excited for that. But Professor Katz, you mentioned about this one thing. I totally agree when you talked about the human touch, the personal relation we are building with each other. Even when I look around myself here with my classmates, with my friends, the bonds which I have created in last 9 months, it might be weird hearing that, what I'm going to say, but I don't think so. I have these many strong bonds back in India as well. I've always felt out of space there, and maybe that's why I'm more comfortable here with people like-minded and more broad, like they have more broader thinking as compared to back in India. I mean, I love people there over, my friends, my family, but still I'm more comfortable working here and studying here as compared to back in India. But you mentioned about this human touch here, and when we talk about hospitality and future of hospitality, AI has been the biggest topic in this industry. What do you think, that will AI ever replace human resource in hospitality industry? Because since technology is coming in and the money is also a lot in this industry, do you think hotels will adapt more of technology, AI and robot systems and not hire human resource?
It's a great question.
It's not just about hotels. I'm so sorry to cut you out. It's not just about hotels or any, I said it, but in the hospitality industry, when we talk about healthcare, when we talk about senior living, when we talk about marketing as well, or hotels or restaurant, anything, do you think AI is a threat to human resource?
I don't. It takes me back to a conversation I had with the CEO of GoTab. And he positioned himself as both a technologist and a humanist. And I really like that. And I asked him to explain a little bit more about that. And his thoughts were that technology can create the space for greater humanity. So having technology help us with tasks that may be tedious, that may be mundane, can liberate us from having to do them with people. And that gives people the opportunity to engage with each other in a more meaningful way. And I think that that's where it will go eventually. And I think it's obviously going to be formative to our society and our culture. But I think that hopefully what will happen is it'll give us breathing room to develop new ways of communicating with each other in meaningful ways. And I think that the personal touch is going to be even in higher demand because of it.
Got it. So that means we're going to go hand in hand with technology and human resource all together and going to make more easy and more beautiful hospitality, or I can say industry in that way.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think hospitality, the way I view hospitality is, it's not only the right thing to do when it comes to business, it's the smart thing to do. People like being seen. People like being heard. People like being valued, right? And that's what hospitality is all about. It's these interactions. And so, I'm a very large fan, as everyone knows here, of Union Square Hospitality Group, in New York. And what I like about them is their entire inline hospitality philosophy. I really, valuing the people that you work with empowers them to value the customers and guests that you want to welcome. And I think that, it's funny, it doesn't sound like rocket science when you say it aloud, but, it's amazing how many people don't do those very simple measures and take that action and treat people the way that they want to be treated so they can treat others that way. And again, it's not just the right thing to do. It really has an exponential effect, and that's what makes it the smart thing to do. It makes people want to go back to your brand, to enjoy it, and pay more for it potentially as well. Which is why, I know everyone listening to this who knows me knows that I don't use the D word.
I knew it. I knew you were going to mention about it.
But truly, I don't want people to come to my brand because of.
Can you explain the D word for the viewers?
Sure.
What is the D word?
The D word is discount. No discounting in my classes. I want people to want a brand, not to feel like they're being motivated by a financial motivator, because then what happens is that everything becomes a commodity, right? And when you have a brand and not a commodity, it's something that people value. And, we always talk about AirPods, right? Apple AirPods.
Yeah.
And people spend on them, right? And there's lots of choices out there for less money. But the reason why people spend on them is because they want them and they value them. And that's the challenge when we are in our marketing and branding classes, to say, well, how do we make people want this enough to value it? And then, the price will follow. And it doesn't have to be an expensive item. We do it with generic items in the store versus brand items in the store too. And often we'll buy the branded item, even if it's just a few cents more.
So are you trying to say that the D word, which we are not allowed to use in your class, but I'm just saying it, discount thing, companies don't have to use it if they are providing value in their product. And if they know about their own value, discount is never needed in the industry.
I think that's an important thing you're talking about. And, I think that it doesn't mean that I think there's a difference between discount and value. And you can always do value added, and that's different from discounting. But I think discounting is sort of a race to the bottom. Because if you have a brand that's competing with mine and you discount 10%, I'll discount 15%, and you're not going to make as much profit, I'm not going to make as much profit. And people view both of our brands as commodities, not brands at that point, because there's no real reason to care. There's no emotional connection. There's no value in wanting.
I got it. And it makes me more clear about how you see this specific D word in the industry.
Yes.
But,
aren't you glad the D word is not Duvet?
Oh, in the beginning, I used to think, okay, oh, the D word is my name or something. Does Professor Katz not like me or something like that?
No.
But no, but I like the way you call my name DV. So that has been the famous thing. I'm telling you, since day one, from our first week of class, 5th of September, our class was on 7th of September, 2023. I remember that. Thursday night, 6:15 to 9, 6:30 to 9:15. I remember that. And from that day, you have been calling me DV.
That's true.
Every student from our batch has teased me over that. Oh, Professor Katz, why does he call you DV? I'm like, I've told him that it's Dive, but he kept on calling me DV, and now I'm okay with it. Everybody's okay with it. And I guess that's what my name is.
It's a term of endearment at this point.
Yeah. And I like it that way. So
That's
just
great.
keep calling me DV for my whole life now. But yeah, definitely. We talked about discount and how things are in hospitality marketing. And during your classes and all the classes we had in last 28 weeks, we get a lot of opportunities to interact with guest speakers. There have been a lot of guest speakers which provided us a lot of value and so many insights, so many connections, and so many learnings and corrections in our presentations, because I like the way how you mold your presentations with our guest speaker sessions so that they can advise us or suggest us over our presentations. I remember there have been in our previous semester, in this spring semester, there have been a lot of guest speakers who told us what to do and what not to do during our NYSRA's project. So do you want to talk about how you specifically choose your guest speakers when it comes to your classes? Specifically, you teach branding and marketing and hospitality strategic marketing.
Sure.
So do you only look for marketers, or do you look for hoteliers, or do you look what's the bunch you have of guest speakers, and what do you think about while calling them out?
Well, I think that especially in branding and marketing, there's a lot of perspectives, right? I have my perspectives, and I share them with our SHA students. But I think that it's really important to give everybody a lot of exposure to different perspectives. And so that's one of the things I look for, because I think that when we have industry experts that are willing to come into the classroom and share their knowledge with us, it's really helpful to get their perspectives. And I think by having a variety of different thoughts shared with the students, you get to see the commonalities and the differences. Oh, everybody's talking about this. Everyone's talking about this. Oh, but this person had a really unique angle on that. And that way you guys get to pick up on the consistencies, and the consistencies are the things that are really sticky, right? Those are the things that really matter. And then the extras are the differences, maybe the unique angles, might be specific to a part of the industry. But I try to get people that are, expert in their area, and are excited to share with you. There's nothing worse than hearing a guest speaker that is a big old bore, right? And I find that I'm so proud of the guest speakers that I've had the pleasure of inviting into the classroom, because they might be the author of one of the books that you've read, or it might be someone who is responsible for a brand that you've heard of, and then some of them are also SHA alum. Which is really exciting, because then I think it's super meaningful, because the students, both the undergrads and the graduates, can see, well, here's someone who's maybe a few years ahead of me, not a lot of years, but a few years ahead of me, and they're doing it. They're out there. They're in my case, they're doing marketing in the hospitality industry, and I feel like I hope that that's really motivating to everybody, and I hope that you guys can start envisioning yourselves. Because it's not that far around the corner.
I get it. But the guest speakers I have met till now in all the classes, but we've had the most guest speakers in your class, because you have everything aligned for the whole semester in your syllabus, that who's coming when. All the professors had of it, but you have the most guest speakers, and we genuinely waited for all the guest speaker sessions. Why? Definitely, we look for more opportunities, more networking, but the insights they give us, because when we are in a school, we are getting your comments, your review on our presentation, on our work, definitely from our friends, yes, but it's a closed environment in school. Definitely we are getting it, we are happy with it, but when somebody from outside comes into our this scenario, and he or she tells us that what you should do with your presentation and what not. This gives us a third eye view and a viewer's point of view, which helps us out that, okay, what do they really want? And I remember you told us about in branding and marketing class that you should know what people want. So do you want to talk about this specific thing? Because I'm going to step into what is marketing and what is branding. Because there are people who usually confuses branding and marketing with just, okay, change your logo, change your tagline, change your color, and that's it. You rebranded yourself.
Sure.
So since you are perfectionist in that, you want to talk about what is, like, give me a brief over this in the simplest language. What is branding and marketing?
Okay. Well, it's funny. People do confuse the two, and they really are complementary but unique. And branding is all about relationship building, right? And that's what I always tell the students, that if you learn nothing else, remember that branding is about relationship building. It's about value creation because of that. And so when you look at branding as value creation and relationship building, it really changes the lens. It's not about identity, which the logo is part of, but that's just a visual way of marking your branding, right? And it grows out of that visual element, but it's grown into something so much more than that in modern day marketing and branding. And so branding is really about, how am I going to take my product, my service, and make it different in a meaningful way? And how am I going to make it matter to the people that I need it to make it matter to in order to be a successful venture? Right? It's understanding human behavior, and that's where that human interaction comes in again. It's understanding human need. There's psychology around it as well, and it's understanding what your as Simon Sinek would say, what your why is, right? We always struggle in that exercise, right? When we ask people to come up with what their why is, but it's such a meaningful exercise because it really talks about discovering your purpose and the shared beliefs that you have with your brand and the audiences that you're trying to appeal to. That's branding. It's your North Star. It's your roadmap. And it's what you hold your marketing accountable to. So if you don't have a brand and a brand strategy, I don't know how on earth you would go to market it. You can, tactics are easy, strategy is hard. That's what I always say. Marketing strategy, also has to make sense. Who are the personas that you're trying to attract with your brand? Who are the people that we need as our advocates and ambassadors, or the brand dies, right? And how are we going to reach them? How are we going to meet them where they are? How are we going to make this matter to them and get them involved? How are we going to engage them? And all that engagement is the marketing aspect of this. It's how you bring your brand to life and how you execute upon it. And I think people will also think of, let's say I am operating a hotel, a restaurant, an airline, a business of any type. People will think about, even retail, right? People will think about the in-store experience, or, the experience of actually making a purchase or having that service. And that is important. But what about all the opportunity ahead of that? What about all the opportunity that follows that? It's. I also will say that branding and marketing are a lot like dating and building relationships, right?
I like the way you put it.
And if this is why if we go on one date and with someone we think we might be interested in, right? We build an experience around that, and the experience is either positive or negative, right? If it's positive, maybe we'll want to go on a second date. If it's not, we let it go, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. Like if we have a really positive date, but then we don't do anything after, I never called the person again. I never emailed the person again. I'm leaving that opportunity on the table.
That happened with me.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't text them again after the first date.
See, and nothing happens. Well, it's the same thing with branding and marketing. If we if we are able to get someone to purchase our brand or service, oh my God, what an accomplishment! That's great. But that's just the very beginning of the relationship. It's not where it ends. That's where it starts. And building a relationship and building that loyalty and building that ambassadorship is all what marketing is about. And unless you have a good, solid brand foundation, it's aimless. And unfortunately, what you wind up with is a commodity. And that's when people price shop.
Got it. Do you think most of the companies are moving towards the commodity business now? Like, even if they're providing the service, and specifically in hospitality, where you should create an unforgettable experience for the guest, but they are making it commodity service now, selling everything, putting a price tag on everything, even on the emotions or the kind of service they are providing. What do you think about this commodity business?
I think there is far too much commodity business in hospitality. I really do. I think that, when I look at the hotel market in particular, I think there are certain hotel brands that have avoided that. And they're really distinct. And they've made it their business to be distinct and really do have a very clear brand that people want to experience. The one that students will always know I talk about and rave about is I love locally the Verb Hotel.
Yeah.
It's a rock and roll hotel.
Yeah.
And I really, they live and breathe it. When you check in, you get a backstage pass on a lanyard.
Yeah.
Right? And every little nuance, there's vinyl in the rooms so you can play records. There are pool parties with music in the good weather. Everything about it, there's memorabilia everywhere. That's not just your regular hotel experience. Now, it's not for everyone, and that's okay because when you try to be something to everybody, you wind up usually being nothing to anyone. And so I admire brands like that who are not just a cookie cutter. A hotel is an opportunity for a lot more. There's the expression beds and heads, and heads and beds rather, and I get it from a financial point, but from a branding standpoint, it makes me bristle because I think that that's not what experiential marketing is about. That's not what most people are really looking for. And that's why, and again, it may be an unpopular thing to say, but, I think that's why, even OTAs play a role in this, right?
Yeah.
They make, hotels a commodity, right? I'm going to price shop. Whereas, I would much rather stay at a hotel because, there's something novel to the experience. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in hospitality. And I don't mean to pick on the hotel industry. I mean, it's rampant in every segment of our world. But I think that, again, I think when you have a commodity versus a brand, I think you risk racing to the bottom. And I think that there are always going to be commodities, and that's fine. But I think if you're looking for something that's special and in building an experience, and as an aside, one of the things at SHA that I like so much is that we have so many students that are truly entrepreneurial, and they're coming up with their own brands and their own ideas, and the innovation competition is a great example of that. What's so exciting about that is that these are novel ideas. These are not commodities. These are true brands that they're solving unique problems. They're bringing fun to certain things. They're making things meaningful. They're taking on societal issues. But they're doing it in a way that is not just a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great example of how commodities do have a place, but again in the context of experience innovation, they really don't.
To be honest, I related to you, and I feel the moment a brand states themselves as a commodity business, they lose their personal touch with the public. I mean, if I am fond of Apple, it's not just because of their commodity which they're providing. It's about the feeling. It's about the symbol they gave me, the status they provide me, and the connection they have with me. I don't look for Apple just for features or just for a specific camera model or anything. I go for Apple because it gives me that sense of luxury. And I feel the day they will put, they'll start discounting themselves just to put more number of sales into their company, I guess I won't be buying that. I don't know whether they are already into commodity business or not. What do you think about it? Are they into it?
I think Apple,
Or are they doing really good job in connecting with people, like the personal touch they have with people?
I think Apple is a great brand, and I think of it as a great brand because I think they are really distinct, and I think you don't have to really think very hard or long about what Apple represents. And, for people that are my age, when, they remember when Apple came on the scene, and they were
Yeah.
very, very, very disruptive. They were going up against monolith companies that were truly commodity in the PC market, and they were shaking things up. But again, I think the key was they weren't trying to be everything for everyone. They were going after people who were like-minded, people
Yeah.
who were disruptive, people who were creative, and it worked. And what emerged from that is the idea of individualism. And I think that's where the brand is really highly focused today, and helping people be the individuals that they are and be as expressive as they are in whatever way that may be. And that's why I think Apple is so successful.
Got it. We've talked a lot about branding and marketing. There is one more thing which I'd love to add, and it's related to one of the guest speakers. And you remember him. He is also the author of the book we read, Mr. Atul Minocha. And during his guest speaker session, I told him that there is one thing which I've learned from his book specifically, and because he talked about marketing in that, a lot of different things, new point of view for me. And I realized this one thing: in this world, we should learn to market ourselves as well,
Yeah, I agree.
because in the end, you are working for whatever company, whatever product, but if you're able to market yourself, half of the job is already done, because people don't buy your product, people buy you, your
Absolutely.
experience, the experience you provide them. So learn to market yourself if you are, trying to build your career in branding and marketing, if I'm saying it correctly. So what do you think about how would you advise people or aspiring students to market themselves? What is that one tip which you would give them, that what to do to market themselves better, so that they can be prepared for the world, for the real world ahead?
When it comes to yourself as a brand and personal branding, I believe highly in it, and I think that it's funny because I think it's not as intuitive to people today, even though the technology is there to help. And so my one tip is, and again, this will come as a surprise to no one, but I'm a big LinkedIn fan.
Oh, yes.
And I think that people should, all the students should embrace that. I think that you should link in with each other because you are the future of hospitality, and you are all going to be working in the industry, and it's a really good first step. It's easy. You should link in with all your professors because we have networks of people. You should link in with every single guest speaker in every class. And, I had a student once, John Copeland. I hope he doesn't mind me singling him out, but great guy and talented student and athlete. And John said, well, I feel like it's disingenuous for me to link in. I don't really know these people. And, I understood his sentiment. I actually appreciated the fact that, he's conscientious about it. But I said, you're not saying that, you're best friends. But truly what will happen these days is when you go out into the job market, the very first thing they're going to do is look up your LinkedIn. And they're going to say, oh, well, such and such. And, all you need to say is, yeah, they were a guest speaker in my class. I learned a lot from them. They were great. But also, 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, you might have a project that you're working on that, one of these guest speakers or one of these other contacts might be a real resource. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, you may not remember me, but, you were a wonderful guest speaker in one of my classes at BU and SHA. And I'm wondering if I could, bend your ear on a project for a few minutes. And they will say yes, most of the time. So I think that's really good. And I think the other thing, too, is I think that students here at SHA are so involved in so many initiatives, professional presentations, competitions, all sorts of things, clubs, all sorts of activities. And I think that, it's not just making connections, it's also making your feed meaningful. And so when you are doing some of these events, snap a picture, when you're at the Innovation Competition and Hospitality Summit, go introduce yourself to Bashar Wali and get a picture with him and then put that on your feed.
Yeah.
Because, again, people will see that, oh, well, this is not just an interesting individual. This is an individual who's taking initiative. This is an individual who is serious about, their career. This is an individual who's also having some fun.
Yeah.
I think it's simple to do. We post on social media all the time, but we don't usually use LinkedIn in the same fashion, and I encourage all the students here at SHA to do so.
This is one thing which I've learned from you. I mean, among a lot of other things, you told me in the very beginning of the semester that be active on LinkedIn and post about everything, about guest speakers, about all the places you're visiting through your school, opportunities which you're getting. And in the beginning, I thought, should I really post everything? People will think, okay, there's a lot going on in his life when it comes to career. And I randomly started posting. And this podcasting thing, all the public speaking thing came out of that thing. Because I realized that I love putting out myself on social media, and specifically LinkedIn has been my favorite social media application since last 25 weeks now. I love posting things there. Every week I'm posting about my podcast. Every week I'm posting different articles. And all of this credit goes to you because you told me that start posting on LinkedIn. I want to see your post every week on my LinkedIn feed. And I'm like, okay, I'll try to post. And now if I see a good article, like maybe on Tesla, I posted an article on Tesla last week. I just post it randomly. I post videos related to my design thinking and innovation class, related to branding and marketing, different things. And the engagement level, people like it. People see that there's a lot of things people are posting and they love to see what's happening in the world.
It's a great idea exchange.
Oh, yes.
It really is.
Yes.
It really is.
And specifically, I'm very regular with my podcast now. Every week I'm posting 2 posts about it. So getting the engagement, getting to know a lot of people. You mentioned about GoTab. There's an alumni from our school. He connected with me through our podcast when I mentioned about MMH. And I'm like, okay, people are getting to know what is happening.
Sure.
And I was so happy about this LinkedIn and the podcasting thing. So thanks to you for that.
I'm glad it's working.
Yeah, definitely. But now since we have talked about branding and marketing, we have talked about SHA, but let's talk about BU as a school. And I know you are a great marketer when it comes to SHA, when it comes to BU, Boston University. You love talking about it. You love telling people. I want to know the difference of college life now and back in your time, because there have been many decades. I'm not saying that you're old or something. You're still young, so don't quote me on that. But I want to know the difference of college culture, how people think now, how students are, how they're more, more motivated towards their future or not, or back then in your time, were people more motivated or what? So what's the difference?
I would say there's probably a couple. One is the most profound difference is technology.
Oh, okay.
And when I was an undergraduate student, we didn't have phones, we didn't have laptops, and so it was a bit old school compared to today. But we took notes with pen and paper, and we didn't have the distraction that technology can often present. And I know it's controversial, but I encourage my students to park the technology in the classroom, right? And I know that there's some students that for learning reasons or language reasons need it, and that's a little bit different. But most of us don't fall into one of those categories. And I just noticed that the engagement is so much higher when the laptop's closed and the phones are away. And I get it. It's not like I'm immune to it either. I get distracted by my phone all the time. If I'm on a long online meeting, I would be lying to say that I don't check my email if I'm not responsible for speaking at that moment. So I do get it. But the reality is that your role as a student here to learn matters. It's not an inexpensive venture that you're on as well, and you want to make sure you get your money's worth, so to speak. And I think that what I've seen in the classroom is that when we park the technology, it's been really effective, at least in my classes that are so conversational. And again, it's not to say that technology doesn't have a place in the classroom. There's all sorts of innovative tools that can be used in the classroom setting too. But that's a little bit different than being tempted to check social or do a little shopping or web browsing. So I
You
know
never know what's happening behind the laptop.
well, unfortunately, I kind of do in the sense that, I was asked to sit in on a few classes and provide feedback to the instructors, and so I would sit in the back of the room, and you see everybody's screens, and I know what you're doing. No. But again, I feel a little hypocritical because I do get it, but I think that if you just shut off the temptation, it's different. We open it up again on a class break or something like that. But I think it can make a profound difference. The other thing I would say that's different, and I'm not completely sure if it's related or not, is that I think that there is so much more autonomy as a student today than perhaps there was even when I was in school. And yes, there was autonomy in certain fashion, but I think there's a lot of pressure on students today, both emotional and societal. And I think that the autonomy plays into sort of a lack of structure sometimes, and structure can sometimes help, combat some of the pressures that we feel. And so I think the burden is on people to sort of figure out what works for them. And what works for you might be different than what works for me. And I think it takes students a little bit of time to figure that out. And it takes, people sometimes to figure that out, even in work life too. So, I think it's important that people sort of invest in themselves a little bit, make sure that they take care of themselves, whether that's, through exercise, through, social bonds with friends and family. I said that I was an introvert. I definitely need my downtime. I need time to recollect. And I know that about myself, and I would encourage you guys to do the same. Not necessarily, recollect, but do what you need to do in order to, maximize your own functionality. And I think that that's harder today than probably it was in my day.
Got it. Would you like to be a student in today's world or not?
I am a student in today's world.
That's a good answer. But no, as a formally, would you exchange your life?
No, I wouldn't. I value my experience and I value what I've been through to get me to where I am today. But I really, I'll tell you a personal story, and then I'll take you back to today. When I was very young, I was diagnosed with a learning disability.
Oh.
And back then, people basically said you shouldn't tell the child about it because it'll make it worse for them instead of better. So when I was quite young, I would see all my friends, studying and doing well, and I would put the effort in, and just I couldn't get my head around it. I didn't do well as a student. And I didn't really have any explanation for it. So I pretty much figured out that, well, okay, I'm a nice guy, I'm a good guy, but I might just not be the brightest guy, and maybe that's okay. And then, when I was just about entering high school, my mom, still against recommendation, told me what was going on, and she explained it to me, and it was like a cloud lifted. It gave me another reason to try, and really to be introspective and think, okay, can I do this? How can I do this? What would it take? And maybe I wasn't, maybe I wasn't dumb, and so it gave me a reason to try again. And my first semester after that, I made honor roll for the very first time in my life, and again never looked back. And I think that was really formative for me, and it makes me, when I see people, you don't have to have a learning disability, but when I see people who, have an issue that they're confronting, it just makes me want to. It makes me want to help. It makes me want to say, you can do this. I might not have the answer for you as to how, but there are answers out there, and there's a reason to try, and there's always a reason not to give up on yourself. And I really feel like that was an important part of my life that I don't know if I were living through it today, it would have spilled out the same way. But the other part of it is that I really do mean it. I really do feel like I'm a student. And I think the truth is, you can ask any of my SHA colleagues, and I guarantee you they'll tell you the same thing. We learned so much from you guys. It's crazy. And sometimes it's you were talking about multicultural differences, right? How cool is that we have such a diverse student body here?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I've learned so much about different cultures and customs and holidays and traditions, but I've also just, I've learned so much about people's life experience and, and both from students, but also from my colleagues. I'm so privileged to work with the folks that I do. They're really all interesting, talented people. And so I feel like I'm just a big old sponge. And, the other thing, too, is, we always ask for feedback with the classes, right?
Yeah.
We're really lucky here that we have some autonomy in the classroom. We have a lot of accountability, don't get me wrong, but we have a lot of autonomy as well. And so I learn each semester, maybe that didn't work so well. Maybe we should try it this way. And so there's a little bit of experimentation that happens. And it's good to challenge yourself. It's good to say, well, the kids didn't really like that book. Let's swap it out. Or, the students really loved this workshop. We should definitely do something like this again. So, they really loved the presentations. No, but I feel like there's always feedback that's really, really helpful, and then there's also some feedback sometimes that's, I understand the sentiment behind it, but it file under what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's good for you.
Yeah.
So it's sort of weighing all that. But I'm learning all the time, and so I think we all have the opportunity to be students of life.
Gotcha. Before getting into feedback system and also the rehearsal thing, because these two things are very prominent in your class, I want to compliment one thing, which I was not expecting in any of the classes here, because the background I come from, the education background, we were not used to laptops at all. But it was never allowed in our school. I mean, our first primary medium of education is our books, registers, diaries, pen and paper. That's our medium. And laptops and iPads, these are our secondary thing for research, for additional things. If we have to submit any project, it's not going through our laptop. It's a physical pen and paper project. You have to write it by yourself or maybe print it out, but not in PDF, or we don't have any system like Blackboard or anything like that back in India. Now things are getting improved, but they prefer it that way. So when I came here, everything was new and I was all set for that. Okay. And in your first class, you said that shut your laptops down and keep it away. I'm like, okay, what is going to happen maybe for the first class? And then you told us that get your pen and paper ready because I'm old school and we are going to go that way. I'm like, okay, we are going again that way. And trust me, I realized this one thing, that it is a better way. Pen and paper makes you understand more. Things are way clearer. Things are more. I mean, you're adopting those things in your head or in
Yeah.
you.
There are
So
multiple studies that will show that
yes.
when you physically write things, it goes, you process it differently than when you keyboard it.
So I loved it, and I prefer it that way. When you tell us to keep our laptops and phones away and just stick to our pen and paper, I'm totally on with you on on that point. But yeah, I mean, people are having different
I know
preferences.
not everyone is so eager to stow the laptop, and I understand it. I mean, again, we acclimate to the technology very, very quickly, and it becomes a crutch pretty quickly, and it's an asset in many ways. But again, I don't think it has to be at the expense of one over the other.
Yeah. So now moving towards the feedback thing, which I told you, feedback and rehearsals thing. You are one of the people I know that who loves to give feedback and also take feedback, and with your classes as well as in your life. And when we talk about giving out, I mean, when you give feedback to people, rehearsals come in the way. So I want to know, because I have never seen this in any other class, but specifically your class, and also like there are 2 or 3 more classes like that. But you are very particular with your rehearsals. That rehearsals should be good. You should be ready. What do you think? I love that you tell us to prepare ourselves for rehearsals, because it makes us ready for our final presentations. What do you think? What made you do this concept of rehearsing our final presentations right in front of you before going, like 2 weeks prior, we are having 2 rehearsals, 3 rehearsals.
Sure.
So what is the concept behind that? And I want to know, the students who are coming, they should be ready for it. So what do you want to say on that?
I think it's a natural outgrowth of my industry experience. When you are working as an advertising agency, and it doesn't matter in what industry, you are constantly preparing for client presentations, and you have to be practiced in that. You can learn the hard way, or you can prepare. And we would give each other feedback all the time in the agency, and it wasn't always the easiest thing to hear or digest, but 9 out of 10 times it was the right advice and the right counsel. I think that it matters, and it matters in particular in branding and marketing communications classes, because you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't communicate it, if you can't present it properly, it'll die on the vine. And so, I know Professor Lands feels similarly to me on this, that you really have to learn how to present. And one of the things I encourage people to do, and everyone rolls their eyes at me when I say it, but I really want them to enjoy it. When you are prepared, when you are practiced, it gives you the luxury of enjoying it, because you don't have to be nervous, because you are prepared. You do know it. And even in last night's class that we had with you presenting to the New York State Restaurant Association, which was a great opportunity, they were blown away. And part of the reason they were blown away was because you guys had good ideas. But the other part of why they were blown away is the way you shared it with them. That wouldn't have happened, and you were witness to it, if we just did it out of the box without any rehearsals. In all the classes I have presentations, I always say that it's an iterative process, right? We're going to start here, but we're going to end up someplace else. And and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just going to get better and better and better. And I think, you tell me, I think that you saw it last night, but I'd be curious to know what you think.
About last night specifically?
Well, yeah, and the value of practice.
Oh, definitely. So trust me, when we were in fall semester and we were thinking about having rehearsal, I thought that why do we need rehearsal? We'll just go and present for our final presentations. We had our first rehearsal, and then I realized that this is a good thing that we had it, because we got to know that where are we lacking before our final presentation. So definitely, and it also gives us that sense of confidence that, okay, we are going to present right in front of these people, and we know how to say things out, how to talk, and how to walk in the room while speaking, because I'm fond of, walking while I'm talking. So you get that sense of sensibility that, okay, this is what needs to be done and this is what not to do. So rehearsals for me are amazing. I love it. I love doing rehearsals. It makes you prepared, and also it's like a hanging clock on your head that do it. Otherwise, you won't be able to graduate. So do it. The final week is coming in. Specifically about last night, since you mentioned about NYSRA, New York State Restaurant Association, and how we did a live client project and with a wonderful organization, and we got to learn a lot about them. And I complimented you on this thing yesterday as well, and today also I'll say it, that nobody was expecting the change you did during the mid semester. We were having 3 groups, 3 presentation, and then after the midterm evaluation, you told us that, okay, let's do one team and one project. The whole class is one team and with only one concept, and that is let us serve you. And that was something which I was not expecting. Everybody was scared, to be honest, that how things are going to be. But the way you guided us during the whole semester, that was amazing. There is one quality which I really like about you, that you are not the boss in class. And I'm not trying to butter you up, but I'm genuinely telling you, because I observe people, I always say, by your actions as well, I can say this thing, that you're not a boss, you're a leader. Why? Because when you're preparing us, you're genuinely guiding us what to do, what not to do. You're putting out posters for us, showing us that this is the way your presentation should look, because that will excel you in your future. Other than that, when it comes to final presentations, you don't talk about yourself at all. You just sit in the background, in the last seat, in the corner, that not even the guests should realize that you're in the room. And that's what I feel, that is one of the biggest characteristic of any leader or a king, that they make their whole what should I say, army ready, and they just be like, okay, now you're all set, go in the world and just fight for yourselves, you're all set. I'm not going to name myself that, okay, I prepared them or I did something for them. I always see you when you are in your final presentations, you sit in the corner quietly, you don't say a word at all. And that's a big characteristic of a leader, that my class did it, whatever they did. And if they performed well, it's because of them. If they didn't, then you also come up in like between and, cover us up. That, okay, it's just a project, don't worry about. So that's a big compliment.
I appreciate your words, and I think that going mid-semester and making a pivot, I think is also a really good educational opportunity, right? Because you're constantly going to have to pivot in the real world, and it was the right thing to do. And and again, I think it was a really good example of how, again, we're allowed to do some experimentation, right? We set out to do 3 different challenges with 3 different teams, and it became clear that there was a lot of synergies that we could take advantage of. And so it made sense to pivot. And I give you guys a lot of credit because, although, not necessarily intuitive, everybody, saw the light and went with it. And you guys wound up being not only accomplished with what you needed to do, but you were really collaborative. And I remember last night that I was talking with the representatives from NYSRA, and you guys were all in the hallway. And
can you name them, because they have been our guides since last 3.5 months, since last 14 weeks.
Yeah, Gina Zimmer in particular is our key contact there. And Kelly and Liz were also tremendous. And Melissa, who is the CEO of the organization, was the woman who greenlighted this, and also credit to Professor Lanz, who made the introduction to Gina as well. It's you guys were ready, but the pivot helped, and again, you were collaborative. Oh, I know what I was saying. You were in the hallway, and we're sort of like all jumping over each other and taking pictures and having fun, and it was a real high for me because I could see that you were reveling in the success that you had just had in the classroom,
Yes.
and there's nothing that feels better than that as a professor. Literally nothing.
Well, thank you so much for that, because the first live client and all the people from NYSRA, they were amazing.
The good
And
people.
the way they guided us. And we got to learn a lot about specific industry trade associations, not only just about restaurant association, but trade association. So thanks for that. And it's been lovely to talk to you about all the hospitality, and we're almost towards the end of our podcast. But I would love to know that how would you suggest someone, or what message would you like to give to someone who's coming to Boston University, who's coming to SHA, or who's aspiring to pursue hospitality as their career? What would you like to suggest?
I think that if you're someone who likes to challenge themselves, if you're someone who likes to stretch and grow, if you're someone who likes to learn from your colleagues and your peers, if you're someone who is intrigued by the hospitality industry beyond its traditional pillars, and if you're someone who really values this concept of experience innovation and wants to be an experience innovator, there is no better place for you than Boston University and SHA. And I mean that genuinely. I think that, again, this is a school, BU is proud to say big but small, and I think that, we are a big university and we are a small school within it. We have tremendous resources. We produce research that really matters. We are on the leading edge of hospitality. And if you want to be an experience innovator, if you want to be part of that leading edge of hospitality, not only as it applies to the pillars of hospitality, but how it applies to any business, then SHA's the place for you.
Got it. And you mentioned about that we have the smallest school in the biggest university. But I can say one thing, after 28 weeks of studying here, as well as in Questrom as well, and the differences which I felt, both are amazing schools. But it is always being said that SHA is like one of the smallest schools in BU, although same branding, everything is equivalent to all the schools. But smaller school, but creating the biggest impact. Trust me when I say this. I have done presentations in other school as well. The kind of preparation we do here, no other school is doing for their presentations. The kind of public speakers we are providing, the kind of ideas coming out of the innovation challenges. And I feel that comes out of the freedom we give our students. Like the amount of freedom I have got it from you or from Professor Modi or from any professor in this building. They have told me that do whatever you want, just show us, you share your ideas, what do you want to do? They want to know my perspective on each and everything. And I feel so included. I never felt like that I'm talking to a professor. I always told you that even in the course evaluation, I always write that Professor Katz always makes me feel like that I'm talking to a friend, not a professor. So that's one of the biggest thing which I feel here. Small school, but the biggest impact in Boston University.
I'm very proud of our school. I really am. I think, we do amazing things. We really do. And we are small but mighty.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So to the last question of our podcast, and it is a controversial question. I've been asking this question to every guest.
Okay.
And you can answer, and let's vote for it, that who's winning till now. The score is equal till now. You'll get the question. So we're going to talk about this hospitality fruit, pineapple. And I have a question for you. What do you think? Does pineapple belong on a pizza or not?
Not a chance. No.
Thank God. I like you even more now, Professor Katz. I like you
You
even
can put
more
a
now.
lot of things on a pizza, but just not pineapple.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
don't know how people can eat pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, no, it's
No.
not a good choice. Even if the pizza's gluten-free.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But yeah, thank you so much, Professor Katz, for coming on the show. Any last words for the show, for me, or for this whole thing which I'm doing, podcasting?
Well, I really love. I love the podcast. I love how you're engaging with your guests, and I wish you a lot of success with it. And I'm so glad to have had the experience. So thank you for including me.
Thank you so much, Professor Katz. You have no idea. You're the most awaited guest. I was so excited that bring in Professor Katz because he knows he's going to talk about everything related to discounting, related to branding and marketing, related to SHA. So thank you so much for all the learnings. It has been a great journey knowing you since last 28 weeks and for life now. And
Yes.
we have to go out for dinner, as me and Sean mentioned about that.
I'd enjoy that.
For sure, we are meeting for that, and I'm excited for Gala to see you dancing and
Oh God.
and at the graduation.
You don't
for
want to
sure.
see me dancing. I promise you that.
But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Katz.
Appreciate it.